So, so let's talk about, the question was asked that let's continue on the characters from the Mahabharata. So let's talk about Gandhari. Gandhari was the mother of the Kauravas, and she was married to Dhritarashtra. She was the sister of Shakuni. So all the main, at least the villain side of things, she is very connected in the epic, the Mahabharata. Now, first thing about Gandhar, where she comes from, she is named after her country, Gandhar, that is present day Afghanistan. At that time, that used to be part of the Indian territories, the Hindu world. Persia was when the non-Hindu world began. Till Iran, it was basically the Hindu world, or the Buddhist world. Now, the people of Gandhar were very famous for black magic. So Shakuni is also very famous for black magic, and they have these, their reputation has always been little wild, they have always been a little uncontrollable. Now, I think somewhere I mentioned the story that on Shakuni, it is not a story in the Mahabharata, but it is there in the South Indian versions of it, where I mentioned that how Shakuni was actually the revenge of the Gandharas because they were treated so badly by Hastinapur. They starved his father and all the other princes to death. He was the only one left alive. So whatever he did deliberately to destroy the Kauravas, So now Gandhari is very interesting in that she is one of the few people who knew that Krishna was the avatar. Very, very few people knew that. Bhishma knew that. Vidura knew that. Kunti knew, Gandhari knew, and the rishis and things like that. But he wouldn't let them know it. He would wail. Even when Arjuna saw the Vishwarupam and everything, still he forgets. So he wouldn't let them. They knew that he's certainly unusual, but he wouldn't allow that knowledge to stay. But she was extremely interesting in this matter, in that she knew that Drona, of course, knew that he is the avatar. But if you look at the people around her, her husband is the most jealous, spiteful person the entire culture has seemingly created till now. Her brother is the most cunning, evil genius that her sons are the most completely ill-mannered, lacking self-control. And she is the person who is so spiritually developed that she can recognize the avatar. So this is what it means. You are your own karma. Your family, your environment, your circumstance, yes, they play a part, but to a large extent, you are your own karma. But it is not that she did not also have some responsibility. Normally, people give her a lot of credit that, she was constantly advising her sons against these behaviors that they did and everything. But she was also quite, most people in the Mahabharata, the number one problem is no emotional self-control. Everybody is jumping into making vows, jumping into promising things. Nobody is thinking about. Now this girl also, she is told that you're going to marry a blind man. What does she do? Oh, the wife should share everything with the husband equally. So now I will also tie my eyes permanently. Now, okay, it's rather sweet, it's, okay, it's a lot of loyalty, pativrata, look at that, is, but one blind person is not enough. And even Dhritarashtra says, why did you do that? Now, two of us have to be helped around. Now, that's one way of looking at it. Then when she was pregnant and the child was not being born, and she heard that Kunti's children were born, she got all very jealous, and she actually hit her womb with an iron bar. She hit her stomach with an iron bar too. So very obviously she was not very emotionally, and then that Vedavyasa had to come and take that piece of flesh that emerged from her and split it up into 101 parts and put it into jars, and some kind of incubation system was set up, and that was the 100 Kauravas and their one sister, Dushala. That sister was married to Jayadratha. So Gandhari really had bad luck in her personal relationships, because her son-in-law is also not a there's nobody she can be proud of, if you just turn around and look at who she's associated with, there's absolutely nobody she can be proud of. But this lack of emotional control, right to the end, she displays it. On the other hand, everybody recognizes very early on that she is spiritually quite a force. She is spiritually quite very evolved. She is a very powerful person. She is a very great tapasvi. That is recognized by everybody. Almost everybody knows that. When her children were killed, Bhima was so afraid of going in front of her that he actually hid behind Krishna, because he knows that if any energy lashes out of her, at least Krishna will be able to. That is the extent of the power. So this thing that she did, where she blocked off her eyes, it could be that it was some kind of sadhana. It's quite possible, because in all other ways she was very intelligent. Yes, she did not have any emotional self-control in the early days, and even in the end she lost it. But in all other ways she was very intelligent. Why would she do something so on the surface foolish? So it seems that there was some deeper yogic reason to it, because her Shakti did accumulate, and it did accumulate, and it did accumulate. Now all through she knows, all through the scenario, all through the story, she knows that not only my sons are haywire, it is my husband who is the real problem here. We actually blame Duryodhan too much. Basically, his dad was acting out all his fantasies through the son. Whatever I couldn't, whatever I lost as an opportunity, now my son will. And she knew that. There are multiple passages where she points out that you are responsible. Because you are not intervening, you are not giving an order, you are not stopping him as a father and as a king. That is the reason. So again, this thing of tying her eyes looks very odd, because she is not a silly person. She is a very smart person. She is a very wise and intelligent person. But the social circumstances at that time were such that while you did have a lot of influence, if the king or the male relative didn't want to follow your advice, there was really nothing you could do about it. So in the end, what could she do? She couldn't really do anything about her husband, and her husband, it's not like he made her particularly happy, because he was off sleeping with the dasis in the palace anyways. Yeah, Yuyutsu was one of those, So it's quite an extraordinary story in that she does not seem to have any nice things happen. She does not seem to have anything except the high status and high standard of living that comes with being the queen. But her brother is a useless, worse than useless. Her brother is the most poisonous person that the planet had at that moment. Her husband is a complete jealous, nasty piece of work. Her son-in-law turns out Jayadratha, the fellow who tries to kidnap Draupadi once and then stops them so that they can't save Abhimanyu. And her sons turning out to be such hellraisers. So it's an extraordinarily unhappy life. The only sort of advantage that she has over Kunti, who seems to have an equally unhappy life, is that she's living in luxury all the time. She's never suffered, she's never had to live in the forest, she's never had to. But if you look at it, it's terrible, because anything that you can base your self-image on, and for women, quality of relationships is very important. And all her relationships are horrible. The only real decent relationship she seems to have with Vidura and with Kunti, So this is very traumatic situation to be in. This is a terribly traumatic situation to be in, and on top of that, she's chosen to be voluntarily blind also. So now, so was she making the best of a bad situation? Did she realize that by doing that she will get so much prestige and she will get so much praise and approval from everybody, because after that nobody in Hastinapur dares to say anything. This girl has gone voluntarily blind, it could be. It could be. But she never gets that. She never gets that actual power. Now, as the years go by, people realize that she has a very dangerous power and it is lurking. That is the power of her spiritual benefit. Everybody knows that if Gandhari says something, it will come true. Because she never lied ever in her life, and if you have that kind of Vaktapasya, Vakshuddhi, then no matter over time, if for many, many years you have never ever uttered an untruth, then whatever you say starts coming true. Now, she had that very dangerous power. So people knew that if Gandhari says something, it will come true. She could never bring herself to curse her sons. She could never bring herself, she would scold them, but she would never, even when they come, because Duryodhana knows if my mother says it will be so, it will be true. So he comes and he says, say that we will be victorious, say that we will be victorious, just like a small child. And she can't, because she has never lied. She knows that if Duryodhana is victorious, that is not the right outcome. She knows that in her heart of hearts. So she only says, Yato dharma tatho jaya. Where there is dharma, there will be, as there is dharma, there will be the victory. Jaya is more than victory. Jaya is a sort of evolutionary. She keeps saying that, wherever there is dharma, that will be. And she keeps saying that if Krishna is on the other side, then dharma is not with you. But she won't go more than that. She simply won't go more than that. That is her personal integrity. But when it came to the thought that my son will die, she was willing to cheat. So she said that, she told Duryodhana, you come and stand in front of me and I will, I will take off my blindfold and I will bathe you with the Shakti from my sight. Though I wonder how that works. If you keep your eyes covered that many years, you will be blind. So maybe she was cheating a bit, I don't know. Yeah, if you keep your eyes covered like that, through sheer disuse, you go blind. So that if you just open it up and you can see, that's part of the story has never been clear to me, because from a biological point of view, it is impossible. So my theory is that maybe she was wearing that only in public. You know, no, even if you spend, people who spent years locked away in dark dungeons, they lose their eyesight, no? Even though nothing has been. So just the lack of light will cause the organ to atrophy. So from a biological point of view, it doesn't make any sense, but, and I don't think that she was completely blind, because later on there is a story that just part of her vision from underneath the blindfold fell on Yudhishthira's toe, and the toe got scorched because of the anger that was coming off her. So I don't think that what she blocked off, it was complete blindness. There must be something more to it. There must be. So of course Krishna takes care of that, because he makes Duryodhana wear that leaves of the plantain, no, the banana tree. So that his thighs are covered. And but so you see, when people say that Gandhari always stood for the truth and she never deviated, yes, but she would always look for the loophole. It's because to that extent she couldn't overcome it. She couldn't overcome that thing that after all it is my child. The people who can overcome it, they get abused in our culture. That she couldn't overcome it. So I find it very interesting, because she would not consciously give him the blessing, because she knows that is wrong. If I bless him, he will win, and she wouldn't do it. And then she is seeking this backdoor escape, that at least I can make sure that he won't lose, because I can give his body, make his body into the Vajra. So why particularly was she building up? Now she knows Krishna is the avatar and she's a queen. Queens are generally not known for their habit of tapasya. So why is she doing tapasya all the while? And she is not giving it to her useless sons, which Drona did in a heartbeat. Without even thinking for one moment, he did it. And she is not doing it. Then why is she doing tapasya? Years and years and years and years and years and years, because that is going to be needed. So this is all very strange Rinanubandhan coming together, because in the end it is her curse. The Yadavas, who are Krishna's clan, Krishna's family, they cannot be defeated by anything and anybody. It requires somebody her level of Shakti, somebody who's at her level of tapasya. Her curse is needed, because she curses Krishna that your people will also be destroyed and completely annihilated like my people were, and you will die a miserable death. So that is why he doesn't even die in some grand and glorious battle. He's resting somewhere, and one hunter mistakes him for an animal and shoots him. So you see, when a karma comes to an end, even if it is an avatar, when the karma comes to an end, there has to be an originating cause. There has to be an active cause. You just cannot say that it is over. Some reason has to be there. Some trigger has to be there. So she had to finish the avatar. That was her job. That was her job. She had to release the avatar. Now, this nobody understands. This nobody understands, and nobody gives her the credit for it also. Everybody, like sentimental old lady, cursed Krishna. But if she didn't curse Krishna, he is a Sampurna avatar, he is a complete avatar. He would never leave. And if the avatar stays too long on the earth, then earth has problem. The people on the earth has problem. See, because an avatar comes, as soon as the avatar comes, one thing starts happening. People start dying. Yeah? An avatar comes because the whole earth, the energies are out of balance. And he restores the balance, and there is always this one bad vibration to the avatar, that people start dying. Even when Krishna was born, you know. When Jesus was born also, you know. Yeah. So, it's when people say, oh, we need an avatar, I'm like, you don't know what you're saying, dear people. You don't know. We can manage without the avatar. If the avatar comes down, lot of shake-up happens in society. Turmoil happens, inevitable, because the energy is only like that. So she was a fail-safe. She was a fail-safe that the avatar will not linger. Because as it is, he came in the very captivating form. Yes, everybody was in love with him. People would do things. Spiritually inclined people would do things to prevent him from going. They would start doing occult things. So she was the fail-safe. She was the setting that the avatar will finish, because the earth cannot take. And the catastrophe that happened because the Sampurna avatar came down. All the culture, all the learning, all the structures, the whole old world got wiped out. Of course, it was needed, but that is not the point. The point is catastrophe happens. And if he continued, because if you look at the life of Krishna, yes, he's a very jolly fellow, he steals butter as a child, he runs after cows, he dances with the people in the night, all very fine. But as soon as he grows up, and even as a child, what's he doing? Killing people, yeah? The one common thing in that avatar is people die. So people don't understand. Avatar comes in very exceptional situations, and those exceptional situations usually result in exceptional and violent outcomes. So if the avatar remains, then all creation will go out of balance. But once the avatar is in the body, then the rules of the body come into play. That is something that you know in yoga. If you come into embodiment, you have to accept the limitations of the body. You have to accept that all the things that can happen to a human being can happen to you. Now, it's a great thing that he accepted to come into embodiment. But he's a Sampurna avatar. He could have just said, okay, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to rule. I will give one golden age now. So that was a fail-safe. Gandhari's entire life, and that the way she was isolated and she was kept in comfort, and she was constantly seeing all these negative people around her, and then having attachment to those negativity, because you needed somebody at that moment who would not think, but after all, this is the avatar, after all, this is the complete avatar, how can I? Because if you think of the avatar, your entire enmity goes down, your anger will go down. So you needed somebody with that little anger or that little opposition. That is the reason why they put her into this negative environment. Otherwise, she would never have been able to do it. And if she didn't do it, he wouldn't leave. When Parashurama was the avatar and he was the Avesha avatar, the energy of Vishnu descended into him. He was actually a hollow. What did he do? 21 generations he wiped out. Yes. There was not one place in the world which did not have blood on it, so he had to throw his axe standing in Maharashtra right across to Kerala, and that land had to come from under the water, because that is the only place where there was no blood, and where now you could do purificatory rituals, otherwise the whole world had been. That is Parishrama Kshetra, that entire strip that runs from Maharashtra to Kerala, that is the Parishrama Kshetra. And that land had to be actually brought out from the sea, because the rest of the vibrations of the rest of the world had become so infused with violence that to do the purification and to get back the energy back, you had to create fresh land. That's how bad sometimes it becomes when you need an avatar. So this desire on the part of people that an avatar should come, I'm like, you are out of your mind. And when Sri Rama is around, already Parashurama is a holy nuisance. The fact of the matter is, people are scared out of their wits, because he belongs to an earlier time and his Shakti is also from an earlier time, and it's too overwhelming for the current. Whenever he would come, he is always preceded by a cyclone. So just by the fact that he is moving, havoc is being created. And he's a very bad-tempered rishi, because Jamadagni he's Jamadagni, he's the son of Jamadagni. He's just fundamentally an extremely bad-tempered guy that never went away. So what if the Vishnu was in Avesham? The anger is the anger. So for all those reasons, and plus that extra boost of energy, Sri Rama needed to fight Ravana, so it had to transfer. But the fact is, the job of the avatar is done, the energy is still remaining, and now it is causing turmoil. And when he comes to the court of Janaka, everybody is terrified, and they're like, thank God Vishwamitra is here, because now he can control this. Nobody else could have controlled. And so what is the first thing that Sri Rama does? You are not going to wander around like this and create havoc. Yeah, that's the first thing he stops him from doing. Now, it is not his fault. That was the nature of the avatar. But because there was nobody with the power to end it, because when you are embodied, you do need that external cause. Those are the rules. No other reason. So when they saw this happen with Parashurama, they were like, Krishna is going to come, he is 25 times. Yeah. We need to make sure that the avatar will end on schedule, that the avatar will dissolve. So somebody needs to take that responsibility, and Gandhari was some kind of sage or some kind of rishi who accepted that responsibility and came down, and they put her in that messy personal situation so that she would have that khunnas, so that she would have that anger. So these are the deeper sort of yogic and occult things that people don't realize. In that Andha Yudh by Dharamveer Bharti, they had done that Bharate Khoj, they had done that entire episode on Andha Yudh, where this one curses Krishna. And Krishna says, yeah, fine, but you don't understand that every single person who died, I felt each and every one of those deaths. You think this is easy for me. But she was needed. She was needed because there is no other way. You see, one of the stories about the avatar is that always there is trouble getting the avatar to finish. Varaha avatar won't leave the body. Narsimha avatar won't leave the body. Always there is trouble getting the avatar. Ki job is done now, please. So by the time of Krishna, the whole routine had been in place. They knew they knew somebody is needed. But this is the Sampurna avatar. This is the complete avatar. What is to be done? So some rishi had to take that responsibility. I'll do it. I'll cause the disillusion. So if you look at it that way, it all makes sense. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. The whole story is complete nonsense. But if you look at it from the point of view that all the settings were already in place, Parashurama of course had a role over there also, because if you notice, it's very odd. He trains the three best guys on the Kaurava side. He is the guru of Bhishma, of Drona and Karna. You mean to say Parashurama doesn't know what these guys are going to do later? So this time it was a well managed avatar, no hit and miss. All the settings were in place. Who needs to do what, all was agreed upon. Then Krishna, okay, let me descend. So in that sense, Gandhari was a tremendous blessing. But what she did was a sin, which is why when they died, they basically created a fire. They created Agni from within and they burnt their bodies. And that fire came from Gandhari. It didn't come from Dhritarashtra or it didn't come from Kunti. They all died in that fire, but basically that, because what she did at that level was a sin, so that karma had to be exhausted. So they went to the forest. The last few years they went to the forest. I think 1 year or so they went to the forest, and then she cleared up that last karma. So she actually took on a dreadful responsibility. She took on an enormous responsibility for the avatar. So we owe her a lot of gratitude. Yes? Sarvam Shomaya.